A gray April day chases its cold, wet wind around the tents. It is the Tuesday before Easter in the Christian world, but that does not hinder the Americans from ordering us onto the camp road with our personal possessions. Angrily, we pack our bundles and are ready to march out at the designated time. After the last filtering which took Brilla from us, there are less than 500 non-commissioned officers left. It is already noon, and we are still camped at the gate without any food. After hours of waiting, the impatient ones demand we go back to the tents. But finally, Bill H. Turner shouts, "Let's go," and opens the door. We march southward through rows of at least 200 American soldiers, past Poles, Czechs, and Austrians, a colorful collection of European nationalities, all in German uniforms. We leave the collective camps of Cherbourg and reach the highway. How peaceful the front soldiers march next to us today, all their weapons shouldered. Silently, friend and enemy enter Cherbourg. We reach the harbor and stumble over the boardwalk until suddenly we are ordered to halt in front of 3 anchored U.S. ships. Now an icy horror grips the thoughts of the prisoners. Immediately, foreign hands are shoved into our pockets, throwing all handmade knives and boxes into the water. We are pushed in double rows over a small gangplank and through an iron door into the body of the American troop transport Thomas H. Marshall. It is 4 o'clock in the afternoon. A voice over the loudspeaker calls our attention to a gigantic mountain of cartons of crackers stored in a corner. Everyone is free to take as much as he wants. Unbelievable confusion breaks out. Soon the Americans appear and bring order back. The old tent groups find themselves in front of 5-story bunks constructed out of iron bars and canvas. On each bed is a blanket and a life jacket. Right next to the room is the galley, where the cooks are busy. At 6 o'clock, Hawker calls the first eaters to receive their food. The comrades line up in rows without pushing or shoving. Hawker and his helpers work until 8 o'clock as men from the starvation camps continue to reappear with their empty plates. Finally, the biggest glutton lies on his cot with the full belly. As we 4 friends gather around a table, I open our first conversation. Now we know the purpose for the interrogations. They are taking us away from firm land because we still present a threat to them. If they just do not take us to England, Hawker joins in. I do not think so, because we are on an American ship. I brush Hawker's fear aside. The main thing is that hunger has come to an end. As far as I'm concerned, they can take us to the moon. Siegfried does not conceal his joy. The main thing is that we get enough to eat.
Schultz thunders that the war's as good as lost does not change any of the facts, but I don't see why we were not sent to America before. In the USA, we will not be treated as vacation guests, but for whatever work we do, they will at least give us enough to eat. I like them a lot better than the French. For us prisoners of war, it is very simple. We only have to survive the chaos. I feel myself obligated to keep myself healthy so that later I can be of long service to my fatherland. That is our assignment from destiny. Around 10 p.m., a shiver runs through the ship. Unnoticed by us, the Thomas H. Marshall has left the Cherbourg harbor and steams toward the sea. The European mainland, our homeland, our families, everything dear to us sinks in the night and fog behind us. "Come, Helmut, wake up, otherwise the coffee will be cold," Siegfried says, pulling me from a nightmare of battle. "Is this can standing still?" I ask, completely confused. "We are waiting off England and will join a convoy probably tonight for the States," Siegfried explains. After 8 o'clock, we go on deck for an hour. There, wrapped in a gentle veil of fog, lies England. "So, my faithful Echo, how do you like it with the Navy? There are a lot of people among us who have suddenly become world travelers against their own will," I respond. "What do you promise us in America? It cannot be any worse than we have had up to this time. America is no closed group of people. It is the melting pot of the entire world. We will not be greeted exclusively with hate, especially since the country has been untouched by the war and has plenty of citizens of German ancestry." 2 hours later, certain sergeants are ordered on deck. A rescue maneuver is underway. A scrubby crew member begins his address about the lifeboats. "There is a possibility that we must abandon ship without reaching our goal. In an emergency, no one can worry about you. Our people are putting rope ladders all around the ship. We can do nothing more for your safety. That is all that is missing. That Admiral Donitz sends his gray wolves after our throats," Schultz whispers to me. At 2 p.m. we are on deck as curious as the first people, looking out at the armada that plows through the ocean in a zigzag course. "We are coming into a bad weather zone," Siegfried says, turning his eyes in all directions. "It does not look good for at least half of our comrades. They will have to throw up when the dance starts." Slowly, the ship lifts its nose and then slowly lets it sink. Small gray-black hills pass by the ships. My eyes glide across the water desert, somewhat disturbed while a slight nausea creeps up inside me. "Look there! The first are already starting to throw up!" Siegfried shouts in unrestrained malicious joy. "Keep your mouth shut, you damned ape!" Schultz crows and then suddenly leans over the rail. I too am sick as a dog. I'm going to lie down. Perhaps then I will feel better. Schultz turns from the rail and stumbles as though drunk. Hour after hour I am tied to my bed. Only in the horizontal position is the rocking bearable. I have no desire for food and every conversation is unpleasant. In bad spirits, I stare at the iron ship walls until sleep takes this vile sickness from my consciousness. The next morning, I feel somewhat better. I go to Hawker to receive my breakfast.
Man, your face is as white as the wall, he greets me concerned. He shoves a can of Frankfurters into my pocket and brews me coffee. But Hawker's coffee is not meant for me. I have hardly swallowed it before it comes up and over the deck. Schultz does not have any luck with it either. Together, we kneel and offer everything to the water gods. Everywhere men are hanging over the deck throwing up. Friend and enemy are united under the same misery, seasickness. When Siegfried comes on deck during his break, he says with a voice that does not tolerate any opposition, "Get away from the railing and go to the middle of the ship. Sit down here. I will get your blankets and coats." Shaking from the cold and sickness, we lean against the chest of tools at midships. The evening meal proceeds in a manner unworthy of human beings. Swallowing and vomiting follow in a senseless rhythm. Men squat deathly pale before their dishes. Tables and benches are covered with spilled soup. At 9 o'clock, the ship's captain announces that during the night the storm will hit. Number 10-sized waves. Provided by Hawker with empty and full biscuit cans, I await sleep as the savior from distress and torment. For days, the Thomas H. Marshall has squeezed through the storm-tossed sea. Mighty waves roll over its deck and tear away everything not nailed down. Night-black rain clouds pour streams of tears unmercifully upon its body of steel. Heaven and hell, storm and water have united in a wild inferno. Weak and miserable, a listless bundle of flesh and bones, I lie on a small piece of canvas throughout the long hours, totally exhausted. It is not much different for Schultz and the rest of the seasick. The exhaust system does not function, and the air is a mixture of oil, fat, soup, coffee, cigarette smoke, and vomit. Tables, benches, pots, and pans clatter around the room. Now it is finally clear that the weather-tight quarters is an evil windowless cellar under whose iron floor the ocean rages. A message spreads which could turn the world around. The President of the United States has died of a stroke. This report hits like a torpedo, but we are not now able to ponder the consequences. It is 3 a.m. Over the loudspeaker comes the order to put on our life jackets. The storm has become stronger. "Prepare to die," Hawker comments with a serious face. A thundering hit strikes the ship's bottom. Panic-stricken, those in front dash up the stairway and bang against the closed bulkhead. A voice over the loudspeaker. "Attention, there is no reason for excitement. A swell has simply pushed the front of the ship out of the water and let it smash on top of a huge wave. In 5 hours, the storm will be past and we will be in a calmer zone again." It is 8 o'clock in the morning of April 14th. Schultz and I sit with our backs against the tool chest on deck in the wonderful sunshine, looking relieved over the endless but finally calm desert of water. In the meantime, Hawker and Siegfried work to help us get on our feet again. Condensed canned milk and wonderful bread rolls with jam make up our breakfast. "It is bad enough to tear out your tail," Schultz observes. "Now, when we are finally free of worry about food, we have to vomit our intestines out." I take a closer look at him. He's very pale, isolated red spots on his protruding cheekbones. Deep blue shadows lie under his eyes. The man appears very sick and dreadfully exhausted. "Schultz, what is wrong with you? I don't know you this way." "I don't know. Everything is distasteful to me. If they'd only left us in Cherbourg." At 2 p.m., Hawker and Siegfried join us. "Do you notice it is becoming colder?" Siegfried asks. "I have felt it for a long time," Schultz rasps. "Do you know why?" Siegfried asks full of excitement. "Today we had an interesting encounter. Icebergs." "Iceberg in sight!" The call sounds throughout the entire ship. "Starboard ahead! Iceberg in view!" Friend and enemy stand in thick clumps pressed together on the railing, staring to the west. It is a blinding white mass, a sugar loaf rising out of the dark water. At 3 o'clock, the sun stands in the southwest, fantastically lighting the continually growing crystal colossus. "That was in our 4th grade reading book," someone behind me says. "The story of the immigrant ship, that was around 1912, another responds. "An English luxury ship on its maiden voyage collided with an iceberg and sank with the richest people on board. The ship was named the Titanic, and at that time was something of a world wonder. At 5:40 p.m., we are parallel with 2 majestic mountains of ice, about 4 miles away to our north. Only a third of its mass sticks out of the water," Siegfried explains. "Look there!" I scream. "On the middle glacier, a polar bear is climbing up. She has her cubs with her." "Where? Where?" Everyone pushes to the rail. "Don't push so carelessly," Siegfried growls. "The beast is big
big enough to be seen from anywhere. I feel sorry for the poor bears, Schultz joins in. They must have missed the chance to jump off when the Colossus was formed in the North Pole. There, on the left projection, by the big crack. Someone brags behind me, but Hawker cannot keep up the falsehood. Roaring laughter drives the tears from his eyes. Immediately, Siegfried and I join him in malicious laughter until it becomes uncomfortable because those we deceived are furious with us. Today, the third storm-free day, the Thomas H. Marshall steams through the blue floods of the Atlantic with a beautiful red dawn. Trusting dolphins accompany the ship. Generously, the comrades throw biscuits into the never-satisfied mouths of the great gray blackfish. Leaning on the rail, I think, what poor fish. A few weeks ago, these same men would have risked their necks to snatch one of their fins.
Why so deep in thought? A familiar voice sounds in my ear. Oh, what a pleasure, Dr. Braun. Personally, so early in the morning. I greet my philosophy teacher. Did you survive the seasickness? He asks, throwing a biscuit to a dolphin. They are the first animals we have seen for a long time, and I love animals very much. People forget easily. Perhaps it is good that way. In some cases, yes, but that they have forgotten to mark this American ship with a red cross is not only punishable idiocy, but a blow against all international agreements. I have just read that the victors will sit in judgment over us and find us guilty of war crimes. Let them write what they want. Paper is patient. When the killing is over, they are just as much murderers as we. The interpreters spoke with the Americans about it, but they did not give him any explanation. It is best if we do not make a state issue of the matter. Are you unnecessarily exposed to danger? Braun becomes lively. This Atlantic Ocean is a war zone. According to the Geneva Convention, the Americans are responsible to inform the German Navy headquarters about the transport. What use are these agreements on paper when no devil pays any attention to them? I throw in. I had the opportunity for 4 months to watch what was going on in a prison camp, mostly English flyers and seamen. I can only tell you, they lacked nothing. We will soon see how far the Americans live up to the international agreements in their own land. Around 4 o'clock, the ship starts to roll. In my bunk, I follow fearfully the irregular rocking movements. Tired, I close my eyes. As much as the pen may resist writing down this lunacy, still, to respect truth, on board this American transport, which this morning escaped the merciless stormy sea, we, German prisoners of war, celebrate the birthday of our Führer. Since luncheon, a small group of fanatics have been agitating for this paradoxical birthday celebration. With mixed feelings, most prisoners follow the subversive work of these last Mohicans. Finally, those who resist influence the fanatics to wait until the last hour of the day in order to not provoke the Americans. A sergeant from the Air Force approaches the makeshift podium and greets with the German salute. Comrades, following an old tradition, we are assembled here to celebrate the birthday of our Supreme Commander, Adolf Hitler. We all know in what a fearful situation the Führer, our people, and our fatherland find themselves. But as soldiers, we have the obligation to remain true to our oath, to trust the Führer in this highest hour of need, and to believe in the victory of our weapons.
Schultz thunders that the war is as good as lost does not change any of the facts, but I don't see why we are not sent to America before. In the USA, we will not be treated as vacation guests, but for whatever work we do, they will at least give us enough to eat. I like them a lot better than the French. For us prisoners of war, it is very simple. We only have to survive the chaos. I feel myself obligated to keep myself healthy so that later I can be of long service to my fatherland. That is our assignment from destiny. Around 10 p.m., a shiver runs through the ship. Unnoticed by us, the Thomas H. Marshall has left the Cherbourg harbor and steams toward the sea. The European mainland, our homeland, our families, everything dear to us sinks in the night and fog behind us. Come, Helmet, wake up, otherwise the coffee will be cold, Siegfried says, pulling me from a nightmare of battle. Is this can standing still? I ask, completely confused. We are waiting off England and will join a convoy probably tonight for the States, Siegfried explains. After 8 o'clock, we go on deck for an hour. There, wrapped in a gentle veil of fog, lies England. So, my faithful Echo, how do you like it with the Navy? Siegfried asks. There are a lot of people among us who have suddenly become world travelers against their own will, I respond. What do you promise us in America? It cannot be any worse than we have had up to this time. America is no closed group of people. It is the melting pot of the entire world. We will not be greeted exclusively with hate, especially since the country has been untouched by the war and has plenty of citizens of German ancestry. 2 hours later, certain sergeants are ordered on deck. A rescue maneuver is underway. A scrubby crew member begins his address about the lifeboats. There is the possibility that we must abandon ship without reaching our goal. In an emergency, no one can worry about you. Our people are putting rope ladders all around the ship. We cannot do anything more for your safety. That is all that is missing. That Admiral Dunit sends his gray wolves after our throats, Schultz whispers to me. At 2 p.m., we are on deck, as curious as the first people, looking out at the armada which plows through the ocean in a zigzag course. We are coming into a bad weather zone, Siegfried says, turning his eyes in all directions. It does not look good for at least half of our comrades. They will have to throw up when the dance starts. With devotion, the men roar in song, Deutschland, Deutschland, über all. Then the celebration is ended. For 3 days and 2 nights, wind and rain have whipped the Thomas H. Marshall through the raging sea. Heavy breakers lash over the deck. The entire ship cracks and groans. In only 2 more hours, this terror trip is to be completed. We will be near the coast and in calm waters. Like imprisoned rats, we hop around the cellar of this dancing ship with our fearful eyes on the thin steel walls. For a long time now, the stiff-necked have become tired and long for land. For land. Which land? The recognition hits me hard that we are rejoicing over something we do not know awaits us. Yes, one land can be like another, but people are not always human beings. We have been delivered to them body and soul as prisoners and members of a people near destruction. We will set foot without protection on the land of the victors, a victor who has already demonstrated all the faces of humanity from an understanding smile to a merciless grimace. We have stood against the murderous bellow of his cannon, the hail of bombs and his machine guns. We have waded through misery and need accompanied by terrible hunger and thirst, filth and meanness. His barbed wire held us with iron clamps until we were loaded on this little ship. We are trained in our parents' houses and schools to be truthful and to fear God. As youth, we learn to love the Führer and fatherland. The loyalty oath and weapons training complete the young man, but war needs him that way. Suddenly, the imprisoned soldier is treated worse than a criminal. Everything that was sacred and holy is trampled by his keepers. The gallantry and respect for the vanquished foe exists only at the fringe of the war. Instead of fair fight, naked violence is practiced. But despite it, I will leave all the ballast and every prejudice on board and take my first step into the new world with light baggage. Still, I will stand by my faithful companions, ready to help them at any time until destiny guides us once again back to the beloved homeland.
A radiant blue heaven covers the metropolis of New York City. Like a giant in the upper bay of the Hudson River, the Thomas H. Marshall docks as the German prisoners of war assemble on deck to disembark. Greeted by the small island with the Statue of Liberty, it works magic as smiles break across the faces of us foreign soldiers. Yet our hearts beat in unhappiness despite the impressive display that comes from all sides. Our amazed focus is on the mighty monuments of stone, the skyscrapers of Manhattan, weathered, gray, cold, and foreign, completely impersonal, towering in the American sky. In deep shame, we glimpse at our worn uniforms whose color can no longer be distinguished. Our clothing is nothing more than rags. Our appearance depresses everyone at the rail. On the other side of this great harbor, we 4 friends stand and take in together the impressive view of the unequaled city. Why, I ask, looking toward the skyscrapers, have the Americans built such gigantic structures? It is as easy to explain as the pyramids of the ancient Egyptians, offers Schultz. The land here must be extremely expensive, so they simply built in the direction of heaven. But I would not like to live in those beehives. I like the cottages on the other side of the river much better. I agree with you, Siegfried chimes in. As impressive as those cement piles are, I wouldn't live in them even for free.